Hello and welcome to my tutorial on Angular 4. In this tutorial I'll demonstrate a simple application in Angular 4. So first let me talk a bit about Angular 4. What is Angular 4? Now as we know that with the advent of many web frameworks and web libraries like jQuery, EXTJS and AngularJS. So among these libraries and frameworks, we know that the most popular of them were AngularJS, which was the previous version of Angular, also known as Angular 1.x version, which actually changed the way we develop a front-end application or any web applications. So in Angular 1, what were the advantages that it gained so much of momentum? So the advantages were that in the previous version, though they claimed to follow the MVC pattern, we can make MVC design, we can create different architecture, observer designs, still there were a problem. Like as the application used to grow in size, it became very difficult to maintain the application after a certain point of time, especially when your project grows bigger in size, the code base grows bigger in size. At the initial stage it was not that difficult, but when the application is scaled up, then there used to be some difficult situations in maintaining the applications, and also how that application would be maintained across different development teams, especially if the team is large. So with the advent of AngularJS, we got the advantages of having an MVC or MVA VM or MV anything architecture. So that is how this AngularJS gained momentum and became very popular. So even in AngularJS later on, we realized that those of you who are already experienced in working on Angular 1, you may have experienced that after a certain time, even in Angular 1, we start facing some difficult situations. Though Angular 1 is comparatively better, it eases your life because it uses the data binding mechanism, which makes it a bit easier to have a separate model view and controller or MVVM architecture. But still, after a certain point of time, in Angular 1, we used to face some kind of difficulties. Though Angular 1 is still used, it's still a very favorable library and framework, it's not obsolete. So now coming to Angular 2, after Angular 1 there was a huge jump, and in fact a revolutionary jump in Angular 2. Most people think that Angular 2 and Angular 1 are related, same. No, it's not. Yes, the underlying concept of Angular 1 is definitely used over here, but still there is an evolutionary jump over here. Angular 2 is a total rewrite, I would say. Like in Angular 2, all the different what do you say, a flavor or all the different ingredients, the modern ingredients of a web technology, modern web technologies, the way we write or program a web application, all are being used over there. Like one of the biggest difference over here is that in Angular 2 there is an approach, or the most recommended approach is to use ECMA 6, ES6 as you call it, and TypeScript. You can use TypeScript to program an Angular 2. So that makes our life bit easy, which we'll see in a short while. So it is good if you know Angular 1. If you want to go for Angular 2, and then the latest version is Angular 4, on which we are having, on which this tutorial is being developed. But it is not necessary that if you don't know Angular 1, you cannot do Angular 2. You can straight away jump to Angular 2 without knowing Angular 1. Okay. So in Angular 2, as I mentioned, we use TypeScript, which makes the programming even more easier. So I would recommend you that you first learn TypeScript if you haven't already, or you can go through my video tutorial on TypeScript as well, or you can go to, there are lots of tutorials on the web, so you can go through that first. And even if you don't know TypeScript, and if you are well acquainted with object-oriented programming, especially in Java programming language, then also you can make out, if you go through this tutorial, then also you can make out what are the codes written in TypeScript. But still it is recommended that you have a look at TypeScript and ECMA standard 6. Okay, now coming to Angular 2, as I mentioned, we use TypeScript. So before I start talking about Angular 2, so let us talk about how to set up the development environment. So to set up the development environment, what you need is a Node.js. Okay, so Node.js you can download from here. Okay, so you can go to this site and download Node.js. So Node.js nowadays very popular. It is used for this web applications development, as well as it is also used for some kind of server-side development as well. So you can choose your appropriate platform and appropriate bit, what is the bit depth of your OS. So accordingly you can download that Node.js, and Node.js uses a node package manager through which we will install the Angular CLI, that is the Angular command line interface. And then apart from that, you can use any of your favorite free editor. There are lots, like Sublime is there, Eclipse with AngularJS, Angular plugin is there, and Visual Studio Code is also there. So I will demonstrate it using my favorite editor, that is Visual Studio Code. You are free to use any one of yours. So you can download Visual Studio Code from this site, and choosing the appropriate platform, specific to your platform, you can choose the application, that is Visual Studio Code. Okay, so after assuming that you have downloaded Node.js, I already have it installed in my system, so I won't go for the installation process. It's easy. After you download the installer, you can just click next, you can go. Okay, so let me launch my Node.js. So I'll go to this, let me start my, you can use either git bash or any of your favorite terminal. So let me use this Windows terminal, that is cmd. I open this. So let me go to this only, cd/. Okay, then let me go to the folder trainings. Say you can create any folder, and inside trainings let me go to Angular 4. Sorry, I think I don't have that, so I have got Angular 2 in fact. So let me name the folder as Angular 2. Okay, now after that you need to install Angular command line interface. So what I will do is, first let me straight away go to the installation process, and let me compile and run a program, and then I will explain you the bits and pieces about it. Okay, so I'll just go the reverse way. Okay, so it is always better to see the running code first and then go through that through the parts of the codes. Okay, so first I would recommend that you run this command npm, assuming that you already have Node.js installed in your system. So you run this node package manager command. npm stands for node package manager. So you just type npm install, okay, -g. I'll just explain you what these mean, and this is your Angular CLI. So it will install you the latest version of Angular. Even you can put an annotation @latest, but anyway, I'm just simply installing an Angular CLI. So -g is an argument. If you give it, so it will install it globally. So from any application you can use this Angular CLI, and then when you press enter, then you will see that it will take some time for you to install this Angular CLI. Okay, so I am in between. You can even quit it by pressing Ctrl C. So I already have this Angular CLI installed, so what I'll do is I'll just quit it. Okay, I'll just say yes. Okay, so that will save us some time. So after that you will see unless you don't see an error message, you are fine to go ahead. Okay, so my Angular CLI is already installed now. Okay, So this, after installing your Angular CLI, you'll have a, you can have this this Angular CLI is referenced by, this is accessed by a command called ng once it is installed, ng. Okay, so let me start one project over here. So say for example I say ng, and let me name it ng, say hello world. I'll say ng hello world, and then I will say hyphen I. This is an optional thing, but let me do that. You can, if you want a style sheet also to be generated, okay, then you can write, you can use this ng hyphen, you can even mention the style as a parameter, or if you want you can leave it out. Okay, so see, manually also you can create the files. I'll come to it a little later. Manually also you can create your file, or you can create your component files using this command line ng. Okay, so ng, name of the file, then hyphen hyphen, say I want the style sheet also to be generated, placeholder for a style sheet to be generated, so style, and then scss. Okay, if you have worked on less and sass, you already know what this is. This is for expressional CSS. Okay, these are CSS preprocessor. Okay, so I'll press enter, and it will take some time and it will generate the required files for me. And this file you can create it manually as well, but since you have installed Angular CLI, so you can use the ng this ng command line to generate the required files. Okay, so it will take some time. So let us come here and check Angular 2 trainings. Okay, I come to trainings folder, I come to Angular 2. So still it has not created. Okay, okay, there is some mistake. It says this specified command hello world is invalid. See, okay, so some error actually. So I think, okay, sorry, I have missed out one command. What I have missed out over is the new command. I have not mentioned new. Okay, so ng new. Now I come to the end, enter. Now it will generate. So that was a syntax error. So you see, it has created the required component files. If you see, it will show you what it has created. So if you see, if you just observe this, we will see that it has created app.component SCSS, which is nothing but a CSS file. Okay, the styling where we used to style the components, the visual components. Then it has an HTML file. Then this is spec.spec.ts. TS stands for TypeScript files. So spec.ts, this for unit testing. So at the moment we'll ignore it. And then app.component.ts, again TypeScript file, a component file, then a module.ts, a module file. Okay, and rest of the things we'll ignore it for the timing. Only we'll talk about index.html and main.ts file. Okay, these are the entry point to the application. So we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about the components HTML and component.ts file. I mean app.component.ts file. Okay, so when we come over here, so when we open this folder, see, you will see this. Let me minimize this. Okay, so we come here, and you can see all these files, folders, all these things are generated by that ng command that we gave. Okay, so now what we do is, I assume that you have already downloaded one of your favorite editor. Like I said, for me it's TypeScript. So let me open up TypeScript. Let me open up Visual Studio Code. And when you have downloaded this Angular CLI, it consists of all the components that is being that is required for compiling your Angular script, Angular 2 script or the TypeScript. Okay, so I open this Visual Studio Code, which is my favorite editor. Okay. Okay, so I will say file. First let me close what was opened last. So I'll close this folder. Okay, then I'll open folder and I'll point to that folder, the one which we have just created. So I'll go to C drive. I will go to that folder was trainings, right? So trainings, Angular 2, hello world. Okay, and I'll say select folder. Okay, so this is open. So you'll also find that an src folder has been generated, that is the source folder. Inside that folder we'll see an app folder. Okay, so this is where all our components are generated, and in the source folder we have this index.html and main.ts. so this is the entry point of our application. So if we open the index.html file, you'll see that there is a tag. It is a custom tag called app root. Okay, so now coming to this app folder, so let us see our component first. So if I come to app.component.ts, that is a TypeScript. Okay, so this is a component file. So Angular 2 or Angular 4 is actually built around components. So when we discuss the architecture of Angular 2, there I'll explain in more details. So for now, let us just open this file. Okay. Now we see that there is an import statement. So if you are familiar with TypeScript or ECMA standards, ECMA 6 standard or ECMA 5N, then you can make out what it is. So this is an import statement where whatever module is being used in your application, whatever components are being used, dependencies are being used in your application, we import it. So this is the core component of an Angular. Okay, so this is the core component of an Angular, that is Angular/core, and this is called a decorator. This annotation which is being used, this is called a decorator. So decorator consists of metadata which tells how the application should be compiled. This is an metadata for the application. Okay, so we have this component metadata over here. Then we see this selector metadata. Okay, so this selector metadata is used as a selector, like if you remember in this index.html file, if you come back, so this is used as a selector app root. So whenever this is referenced, then it will always call this HTML file, this is the template file, and this style sheet will get applied. So app.component.html is what is being referenced whenever we are using this selector, that is app root. Okay, so this app root selector is used over here. So this will be replaced by this HTML which is mentioned in the template URL metadata. So that is nothing but app.component.html. so let's open it up. So here you see this is nothing but h1 tag is there, and within h1 tag, within double curly brackets, we have a title variable. So this is nothing but this is called interpolation, used for data binding. Okay, we'll come to it. So if I go back, you see a title variable is being declared. It says app works. Okay, so let us run this app. So first index, when we run this app, first index.html will be called. So index.html will call this app root tag, and here right now it is loading. So this will be replaced by sorry, I mean the component that is having the app root as the selector. So that is inside app component CSS. Sorry, app component TS file, TypeScript file. Okay, so this is being used, and it will refer HTML should display HTML, where we have an interpolation with title variable. So this means whatever I have assigned to title variable, that will get displayed in this HTML. So it should display app works once it is running. Okay, and when we come to this templates means CSS URL, the style sheet URL, if you see over here, style URLs, that is app.component.scss. so this is nothing but the style sheet. So here we are not given any style right now, so we'll try to modify this as well. So coming to it in a little while. So let us first open our console again. Okay, so it is still saying that installing packages for tooling, so still the installation is going on. Okay, so finally this is installed. So now we come back to app component TS. So we have, so the first thing that we need to import, the minimal thing in fact that we need to import, is the core component of Angular. So this is the minimal import that we need to do. So component is actually imported, as I mentioned, it is for component decorator, and all the decorators in Angular, they are mentioned using this annotation. So annotation component, and it takes the parameter as an object. Inside that object we can give the metadata. So as I mentioned, the one metadata is selector. So this metadata will be used as the custom tag in the HTML template file. So HTML file over here will be called a template file. And what is the URL of the template? Either you can give an embedded HTML also over here, or you can give an external HTML file. So it is component.html, which we have seen. It contains nothing but just an h1 tag with a title variable bounded to it, and this is called interpolation. This binding is called interpolation. And style URL to style it further. Okay, and the value of the title, we have given a hardcode value for now, which says app works. Okay, now let's come back to the command line, and over here now it's time to run the node server. Okay, so to deploy this application and run it on the node server, just type ng serve. Okay, so this will start your server at default port 4200 until you don't configure or customize the port number. So I'll say ng serve, and if you give this optional parameter called open, then it will even open that browser as well. Open it in the browser, or if you want, you can omit it and manually open the browser. Okay, so it says okay, there is another error it is reporting. You have to be inside an Angular CLI project in order to use the okay, sorry, we missed on moving inside this project folder. We haven't moved inside the project folder. So what is the project folder over here? This project folder is nothing but Angular 2. We are already inside Angular 2, so we have to move inside Hello World. Okay, so we come over here and we say cd hello world. Okay, so cd hello world, and from there we can actually run this command. So ng serve, okay, ng serve open. So let's start this. So this will build our application and open the application in the browser. So you will get the feedback as well over here in the console, that is building the application, how much % is being built, and you can also see the default browser opening up. So whatever is the default browser in your system, you'll see it opening up, and by default it opens at port 4200. This port number you can change. So let it compile to 100%, then it will show up. Okay, so this is saying that compiled successfully. Okay, and after that you see that it says Webpack compiled successfully. So Webpack is actually the build tool that is used to build this Angular app. So now when we come, we see that loading, the text loading is coming, so which is still not correct, because it should come app works. So let us see what is the issue over here. So you can debug it in the console. Let us come to the console. Okay, and let us refresh this page. Okay, some kind of bundling issue is okay. Let me do one thing. Let me take this to Chrome browser, because I anyway have a very outdated version of IE. So let me type it over here. Okay, so this has got the support for Angular CLI. Actually, by my default browser is IE, and I have got a very outdated version of IE, so that is the reason why it is not supporting Angular 2 properly. Okay, so I'll close it. So I get my first app working. Okay, so now if I go back to my app component TS and change something over here, and I'll write hello everyone. Okay, and I say this is my first Angular app, and I just save it. I don't need to recompile it also, because it will watch for any changes. The compiler here will watch for any changes, because it is a just-in-time compiler, JIT compiler. So I'll talk about just-in-time compiler and AOT compiler, that is ahead of time compiler, in my later tutorials. Okay, so for now this should suffice. So I come back to the browser, I open the browser, and you see I don't even have to refresh the browser. It will watch for the changes and automatically recompile it every time. Okay, so this makes it very easy to test my application. So okay, so how was the flow of the application? Let us revisit. So when I use this ng new command in my console, in my previously, so that will create a new project for me. So that consists of this folder, hello world folder I created. Inside that it creates all the necessary components. So out of this component, the significant components are app component, app.component.ts. You can give it any name, but it has given the generic name. And in fact, the recommended name, the first entry point component should always be named like this, but it's not necessary. You can give it any custom name. So it is app component.ts file, which is a component file, and this will import a component from Angular core. This is a dependency, and then we have a component decorator, and that decorator will have a selector metadata, and that selector metadata will define the custom tag, whatever name we can give it. So here the name was app root, then template URL, which is nothing but the HTML, the view, and style URL to style it, and the variable title, which has got this value. And if you come to this template HTML, that is app.component.html, here it is binding the value title. Okay, so whatever is the value of the title will get displayed over here. So the first entry point will be index.html always, as I mentioned. In index.html, you see this app root is mentioned over here as a custom tag, which is nothing but defined in app component.ts. Okay, so if I give some other names, I have to use the same name over here. So this means that if this custom tag is being placed here, it should get replaced by this component declared, whatever is declared in this component decorator. So that is how an Angular works. Okay, now the entry point component wise, if I say it is main.ts in any Angular application. Okay, entry file is index.html, but the main component, that is the first component to be called by Angular, is this main.ts. So if you come to main.ts, you see that some of the import of the dependencies is automatically done for us when we generate these components. You can do it manually also, but since I use the ng command line, it generates it automatically for us. So if you see over here, you have got something called platform browser dynamic. This is required to run this application in a browser. Okay, and then you say platform browser dynamic dot bootstrap. It will then bootstrap a component called app module, because this Angular has got a default module. We'll talk more about modules in later tutorials, the other parts of the tutorials. Okay, so at the moment, at a higher level, just imagine module as a self-contained, self-contained behaviors and views. It's the same as a module in if you have worked in Angular JS 1. Okay, something like that. But the approach over here in Angular 2 or 4 is different. So this is the app module which is bootstrapped. So from main TS, this app module is being called. So now what is this app module? So app module is nothing but a reference to, if you see inside your app folder, app.module.ts. Only the extension TS is never written. If you observe, whenever you are importing any component, we don't give the extension ts.ts. Okay, so module is what? So let us trace back to app module. App module is nothing but app.module.ts component. So if you come over here inside this app folder, we see this app.module.ts file. So let us open this. So over here also you see that some imports, some dependency imports are already done, like HTTP module, forms module, ng module. So it is better to leave it as it is. Okay, so browser module is there. Now here you will see that this app module, we'll talk more about these declarations, what is imports and providers. Okay, so for now let us see it bootstraps, how it bootstraps app component. Okay, so main.ts will bootstrap module, means it will call the module, that is app module, and app module will call bootstrap app component. And what is this app component? If you see, this app component is nothing but app.component.ts, the one which we are working on right now. So then finally this app.component.ts is our main component that is being called. And here we have given the definition that use the selector as app root, and this selector will then reference this HTML file app.component.html, where we have just written one h1 tag. Okay, so this h1 tag with a title variable being displayed, and whatever is the value of the title variable, that will get displayed over here wrapped within an h1 tag. And another, these are optional, like if you want you can omit this style URLs, but you can keep it also. So style URL over here is app.component.scss, that is the expressional CSS file over here. So this is at the moment empty, and then finally this is how it is being rendered as we see it over here. So whatever changes we make over here in this hello world, we get the same changes over here. Okay, so if we come to this app.component.scss, and here if I define h1 tag, if I give a style, an element basis style, and say I write over here color colon, and I say color red, and I simply save it. Now let us come over here. See, you can see the change getting reflected over here. Okay, so this was quite a simple application, and we understood the flow, like what is the flow, how we should run it. Okay, so now if I come to the architecture of Angular, now since you have run an application, so now let's see some of the basic let's see the basic architecture at a higher level. We will discuss about it in more details in later tutorials, later video tutorials that I'll be posting soon. So right now let us study the basic architecture. Now before that, let me explain one more point. Like for a minimal Angular component, we have a component decorator, and this is also very important, we declare a class. So if you are well acquainted with ES6 or TypeScript, you already know what this is. So this is a class name, app component, and this component will refer in other component using this class name only. So this class name we have to mention over here using this export class app component. Okay, So now coming back to the let us quickly look at the architecture of an Angular application. So what we saw that a minimal Angular application consists of TS file, a TypeScript file, and TypeScript is nothing but a transpiler. By transpiler we mean, it means translating any scripting into JavaScript. The reason is that a browser understands only HTML, CSS and JavaScript. It doesn't understand TypeScript, right? But we are writing our code in TypeScript, so this code will not directly run. It has to be compiled into a JavaScript. So if you say view source over here, so you don't get that TypeScript. If you see, it has already been compiled into a bundle.js. If you see over here, you see this bundle.js and whatever is the required bundles. So whole TypeScript is compiled into a JavaScript. So even if you open this JavaScript, you'll see that whatever we have written, it is all compiled into a equivalent JavaScript. So this means, this also implies that we can write Angular 2 or Angular 4 application directly using JavaScript. That is very much possible without using any TypeScript. But the problem is that it will be very difficult. As you can see, like we have to write lots of code, we have to use this object oriented like prototype orientation, object oriented approach of JavaScript, and then we can achieve that. But if you are using TypeScript and using a transpiler, then it makes it very simple, very easy, right? So that is the advantage of using TypeScript, the transpiler. Okay, fine. So I hope this is clear to you. So now finally coming back to the architecture. So let's see architecture a little bit. So I have this, so just basic architecture of an Angular application. So I have taken this from tutorials point, this architecture diagram. Okay, so you see that everything is encapsulated in a module, like we saw that app.module, and module will consist of template. The template part is nothing but this HTML file is the template file. You can write your entire HTML mixed with this interpolation variables. So this is your template file. Okay, so we have got module, we have got template. Module will consist of template consists of then this module consists of component and template, and this component, as we saw, consists of metadata using that decorator, which we have already seen in app.component.ts. see this app.component.ts, this is the metadata, okay, referring to the template. So this component, and using this metadata, it refers to this template. And also event binding, here we have not used an event, but in the later tutorial I'll demonstrate event as well. And then it has got services. This is in the very later part of tutorial which I'll be uploading, where we will be using injector. Through injector we will be injecting services, we will be using dependency injections. Then we can use the directive, like in Angular 1. If you already have worked on Angular 1, you know what is directive. So we have an option of using directive over here also, directives and pipes, and we have got some metadata around this also. So this is a basic architecture of AngularJS, and we see this property binding we have already seen using interpolation, that is the h1 tag. So if I come to HTML, this is the h1 tag, and then finally we compile this application. So I hope this simple example of Hello World was useful to you and you gained some learning out of it. So if you like this tutorial, then please like it and subscribe to my channel, and I'll be coming up with more tutorials on Angular 4. So thank you very much for watching my tutorial. Bye bye.